What's up? All right. Part 3, I think. On muscles, chapter 9, Holes Anatomy. We're talking about types of contractions here, and then we'll get into some energy mechanisms. So first off, when a muscle contracts, it either happens or it doesn't. It's all or none. And you can contract as many as just one single sarcomere, although I can't imagine that would happen. Again, a sarcomere is from Z disc to Z disc. Or you can contract multiple ones. So not all fibers may be stimulated at the same time. Different combinations will give you differing responses. And the more sarcomeres that shorten, the stronger the response, or the stronger the contraction, if you like. Now, there can be graded responses or differing amounts of shortening, as I just mentioned. So we have different names for these. So a twitch is basically a twitch. Some of you may have had these in your eyes or your legs or arms or whatever. It's just a single brief contraction. It's not normal muscle function. You don't normally do it. So here you see tension increases and then it drops very quickly. Okay, that's called a twitch. Now, tetanus or tetany is when these contractions sum up. So it's multiple twitches that are occurring one after the other, as you can see here, and they're summing up or adding up together. So the tension is maintained throughout. One contraction immediately followed by another. The muscle doesn't completely return to its resting state, and they add their effects. So in tetanus, there is no relaxation in between. Sometimes people call this fused tetanus. The last one is incomplete or unfused tetanus, where there's some relaxation in between. And the results are still summed, but in any case, here we have fused tetanus, where it's just continued contraction, no fatiguing, no relaxation in between. And here's unfused or incomplete tetanus, where you might imagine, let's see, I'm lifting my pen, and my pen is so heavy that I'm shaking on the way up. And as I shake, each time I contract and then shorten, the pen goes further away. Contract, shorten, so it's that shaking action that I'm describing that's unfused tetanus. You might see someone in the weight room lifting something and their muscles are fatiguing and they're trying to lift and they're shaking. That's unfused tetanus, a good visualization for you. And then fused tetanus, there's no evidence of relaxation and you get sustained muscle contraction. Okay. So the number of fibers stimulated, the more that occur, the stronger it occurs, the stronger the muscle tension that will happen until the muscles run out of energy. Okay, so where does the energy come from? First of all, there's ATP readily available in your muscle cells, waiting to be used. And immediately upon first contraction, you use this freely available ATP. And this gets you somewhere between 4 and 6 seconds of energy. Okay, but that runs out pretty quickly. So your next available source is a variety of different pathways. Okay, the first pathway is called direct phosphorylation, and it uses a molecule called creatine phosphate, or CP. Okay, creatine phosphate is creatine with a phosphate molecule attached to it. Okay, and when you need to make more ATP, you'll notice that when you release energy from ATP, it gets converted into ADP. So if I put a phosphate group back onto ADP, let's say this is ADP, and I add a phosphate group to make it ATP. Now this has energy stored in it, if I can get it to stay on, energy stored in it that's readily available to be used. But now it's ADP, I've used up that energy, so I use creatine phosphate, and creatine phosphate goes over to ADP, and it phosphorylates ADP, now recharging this battery, if you like. Okay? It's a high energy molecule to recharge ADP. This will take you about another 20 seconds to exhaust all your creatine phosphate stores. If you take a supplement called creatine phosphate that you can buy in the vitamin store or supplement store or whatever, you can boost these levels slightly. There is research that shows that creatine phosphate is beneficial if you are lifting and doing significant amounts of exercise to build your creatine phosphate levels. So after creatine phosphate, next we choose to go to aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration is a variety of metabolic pathways, and they happen in the mitochondria. So here we can see the mitochondria. Okay? And it uses, aerobic means, think aero, like air. It uses oxygen. Okay? And it breaks down glucose into carbon dioxide, water, and it also produces ATP. All right, and this is the ideal way of making energy for your body. You can break down glucose. You can also break down fats. You'll notice here fatty acids can get added into it. And you can also do proteins as well. Protein catabolism or protein breakdown to make energy in this way as well. And in the end, what you actually do is you make 36 ATPs from one glucose, a real big amount of energy, big amount of ATP to be used. And this provides really long-term, more slowly processing energy, but long term. Okay, you can't build up levels of ATP as quickly because this is sort of a longer process, but it makes a ton of ATP each time. Okay, slower reaction and requires continuous oxygen. It's aerobic. Oxygen must be around for it to happen. The last one is called anaerobic, anaerobic glycolysis, which is just this first step here, where glucose is converted into pyruvic acid, also sometimes called pyruvate, and this process produces a teeny bit of ATP, but you'll notice it doesn't require oxygen. Okay, and what then happens is after the pyruvic acid gets formed, to make some of the ATP, you have to sort of reset the system or do it again, and part of that process takes pyruvic acid and makes lactic acid. And by making lactic acid, you can then do this process again with a new glucose molecule. So now this produces very small amounts of ATP, 2. The ideal is that the good thing here is you don't need oxygen. So even when you are totally fatigued, you have no oxygen available in your cells, you can still make a little bit of ATP to keep going. But the problem is you only make 2, just that little bit. And it makes lactic acid. And lactic acid is an acid. And it's going to acidify or lower the pH of your cells and mess with the way that the proteins in the muscle are working. That includes actin and myosin, and the way that they shorten muscle, their function is going to be reduced due to the increasing levels of acid from lactic acid production. And this reaction is really fast, but again, it's not very efficient. It only makes 2 ATPs. Huge amounts of glucose are needed, and lactic acid in the end produces muscle fatigue. So eventually you run out of, there's 2 causes for fatigue here, okay? Lactic acid buildup, which prevents the proteins, the myofilaments from working properly. And then lack of ATP is going to also lead to muscle fatigue, okay? So here we have muscle fatigue and oxygen debt. Muscle fatigue, a muscle can't contract, and oxygen debt basically means the amount of oxygen that we have to use to eliminate the lactic acid buildup, okay? Must be repaid back to the tissue. So after you've exercised, you have this recovery period that you have to allow your muscles to go through to bring oxygen to the cells, to build up ATP stores, and to help to funnel out the lactic acid that's built up in the cells, required to get rid of accumulated lactic acid. So increasing acidity and the lack of ATP causes this fatigue or muscles to contract less. We already talked about creatine phosphate. There's a diagram of it if you were to buy it in the store. Now this is kind of a summary chart showing you how you get your energy production from initial contraction or initial starting of your exercise all the way up to 2 hours here. So from the beginning, our initial energy source is free-floating ATP, what you have in your cells, okay? And that, you'll notice, plummets very, very quickly within a few seconds. We told you 4 to 6, okay? Then we start to build up here. Our ATP, PC is phosphocreatine. PC and CP are the same thing. So phosphocreatine or creatine phosphate, same thing. Those build up pretty quickly. As ATP gets converted into ADP, we build up our creatine phosphate stores to be able to regenerate some of that ATP. And you see that level dropping. You then see the lactic acid system starting to click on and bring the levels up, and you also see the aerobic production of ATP building. But this is very, very slow, even though it lasts for a very long time, as you can tell, whereas lactic acid is much quicker, but it then plummets and decreases very quickly. It's very difficult to maintain energy production because of the lactic acid buildup. Now, different types, we have isotonic contractions. This is where the myofilaments slide past each other and the muscle actually shortens, okay? We then have isometric contractions. Metric is measurement, and in this case, the tension in the muscle increases, but the muscle's unable to shorten. So I often show it like this, where if I flex this muscle and this muscle at the same time, neither one is shortening. They're both contracting. This is isometric, but it's not shortening. Where this would be isotonic, my biceps is shortening. This would be isometric. This is not moving either direction. The lever is not, and so the muscle does not shorten. Now, all the time your muscles have just a basic tone associated with them, or a very slight contraction, even when they are relaxed, okay? And there's different muscle fibers do this at different times, and it provides just this generic tone or baseline contractility. And this is involuntary. You can't control the muscle tone. Now here we have a lever, and I think on this, let's see, I think we want to stop on this slide. All right.